Thank you guys for coming today. My name is John Parra. I'm an artist and illustrator. I do, of course, many children's books here, as you've seen, along with everybody else. Today, I'm just going to be showing you a short presentation, how I do my painting, basically, sort of, because I get a lot of questions about, you know, the texture and the style that I do. So I'm just going to quickly show you, because one of the biggest concerns also is time constraints. So I kind of formulated this whole process to be very quickly get through my projects and turn them in on time. Otherwise, I'd probably starve. I also have handouts here if anybody is interested to follow along. It talks about the materials. It talks about the steps just needed to kind of follow along. So if you guys want to, there you go. Okay, so basically what happens is when I usually get an illustration job, you know, you go through the whole sketching process and approval process. But once you get the drawing down and you're ready to start painting, this is going to be like the format that I use. So basically I begin with an illustration board, and I think I wrote down what type of illustration board I use. It's usually a double press, it's either cold press, I think, which just has a little texture to it. It's kind of sturdy. Most people think I work on wood because of the texture of the paint, but I don't usually work on wood for illustrations because it's too hard for the publisher to scan. So basically I work on illustration board. I cut the illustration board a little bit larger, the size of my printout. This is my sketch for the printout, and I make it a little bit larger so I can kind of tape up the edges. And then, so again, this is the first step. You cut out the illustration board. The next one, whoop, that's not the next one. There we go. So this is an illustration board that's been taped off right here, and the first thing that I do is I gesso the board. And that just sort of puts a ground on it so the paint's not seeping into the paper, and it kind of holds the colors a lot more. I usually let that dry for about a day to really kind of make it strong, because what's going to happen is I'm going to go back in and start layering all the paint layers to the illustration board, and then kind of go back in and scratch into it and mess it up. So I can never use like canvas because I would totally destroy the canvas. It's either going to be wood or illustration board. So basically I'll just show you. Let's see. So I'm using white tape, white artist tape to begin with, and I'm taping out the edges just to kind of cover the same thing. So all this is here is covered. And then once I cover it and I paint it with the gesso, and then I'll put a second layer of just masking tape to kind of cover it up when I start with the layers of different colors of paint. Okay. So basically, after that phase, you're going to come in to start putting some layers on. So this is just a dark layer that I like to use as a background to start off with. And then pretty soon, I'm just going to sit here for a little bit. And then I'll start adding colors. I'll start adding like an orange color, just like a bright orange, you know, throw it on there. I like a lot of bright colors when I'm working. And maybe just alternate when you do the layering technique. You have to time it quite right, because you don't want one layer to dry too much, because then you won't be able to sort of, you know, it'll be too tough to scratch back into it. So you kind of have to, what I do is like I'll paint the solid color, you know, and then what I usually do is, let's see, get it in here. Oops. And I use like a nice fat brush. I feel like Bob Ross right now. It's making me paint some happy clouds. Right? Remember that guy? Just need the big afro. Love that guy. So, but I'll put it on quite thick, thicker than this. And then what happens is I usually end up using like a little portable hairdryer, small one. I'll go ahead and dry it out like this. And then pretty soon that's going to dry. That's going to dry to the touch, so it doesn't feel sticky. Because you have to do it like kind of in one shot. And then I'll add another color on top. And I try to pick a color that's much different from the orange. I don't want it too similar, like either a light in hue or value, maybe even like or very dark. So they kind of like really contrast against each other. So when you go back in and you start scratching into it, you're really going to see the layer differences as you go through each layer. Otherwise, it might be too similar when you go through the layers afterwards. So again, this is a first layer. I put probably another 2-3 layers onto this, like a blue, a green, a white, a beige, a black, whatever it is. And then I'll just kind of build it up. And that's just for the foundation part of it. So.
Can I ask you a question at this point?
Yes.
Are you thinking in terms of color scheme wise, are you thinking in terms of the feeling of the book? Or are you just kind of randomly putting color?
No, the feeling of the book is definitely already on my mind. When I start a book, I usually, when all the sketches I say are done, I will kind of put color codes on each page because I want each page to sort of also be different sometimes. So like the first page, this feels like a pink page, this feels like a beige page, this feels like a yellow page. So I'll actually, because I want it to be different. Every time you turn the page, I want a different feeling about it when you are moving through the book. I don't want it to be too similar. Maybe it's just me, and maybe there'll be books where they'll have a lot of the same backgrounds, but definitely it's pre-planned out what I'm going to end up with. So the last color that I do put on will be the color that I want as the background, and it's very important to kind of like plan it out ahead of time. That's a very good question, by the way, when you're working on it. So things do get planned out as a color theme, and then I'll choose different colors only to work with. Sometimes when you're as an artist, we get tempted to just like, oh, I got like all these paints here and like all these colors, and I'm just gonna throw them all into my painting. But sometimes I like to really focus. Now I'm really focused on. I'll pick maybe 1 or 2 complementary colors, black and white, of course, and maybe another color, and just really try to maximize those to the as much as I can, to really kind of bring out the essence of that page. And it really provides like a nice sort of color scheme to that page, and it really gives it a nice motif. So when I'm working on that, I try to limit also the final paintings when I'm transferring the actual image to the thing. Okay, so then when I get done with all the layers and I paint, and what I do is I use sandpaper and I start scratching into the boards. So this is like a board that I did with all the layers, and you can kind of see some of the orange in the background, some white, even some dark from the brown that was on the underneath. Can you see all that? Sorry, let me hold it up for you. So basically, it gives me just sort of a flat sort of surface to work on, but it's got nice texture to it, and it's got some really cool things going on. So it's sort of almost experimenting. It's really fun. You kind of like, you get to play with it a little bit, and you use a little bit of water to wash it out. And kind of clean it up a little bit, but again, it's just sort of like you're just sort of playing with it and kind of creating a nice little texture. I use the texture technique. It's sort of based, like, I like my art also to look like you found the art, like in an attic or something like that. I wanted to kind of make it look like it was an old precious thing that you open up a trunk in your grandma's attic, and you saw these old pictures there, and they're all kind of messed up. So it has that sort of feel to it, like this kind of old classic feel. So the scratching helps kind of sort of enhance that feel to it when you're working on it. So once you get to this stage, now is the time when I start to transfer the artwork, the drawing, the sketch, to the board. And what I usually do is I do a photocopy. You can print it out, or you can just make a Xerox copy of the sketch, and you blow it up to the scale that you need to. Most of my sketching I do on the computer, and I manipulate the size and thing. Everything's hand drawn, but I enter everything into the computer, and then kind of play with the sort of the whole dynamic of it, and things like that. So you get something like this, and what you're going to do to transfer down is an old ancient technique. I think it was even used on the Sistine Chapel. I read a book about when they were doing the Sistine Chapel, is what they do is they just use charcoal on the back. So, and it's a very simple technique. So what you're going to do is you're going to tape this down to the front of the board. So here's like the textured board right here, like this. And then you just kind of place it over, and you're going to tape the top. And then you're going to start transferring the image down. but there's a special way of transferring it down. You don't just start drawing on the board itself. Actually, so let me just sort of show you what I mean, because there's a sort of a masking painting technique. So what I do is I start masking off shapes. So I take like a nice thick roll of masking tape here, like this. See if this opens up. Oh. And I start putting it on the board. So I'll start kind of laying it over the paint, the background, like this. Because what happened was when I started doing art, I used to do a lot of paintings, but a lot of my edges were also very like rough, and they weren't like nice and clean, and I was always very frustrated by that fact. You know, I like nice sharp edges, nice clean things. So someone showed me this technique where, you know, when you're drawing the thing like this, you put the tape on the board like this, and then when you're doing, say, I'm just putting in the hat. So it's like when you start drawing it in, you know, you push, you know, you start retracing some of the lines like this, and you go over the hat. Okay. So now there's like an outline of the hat now that's being transferred onto the board. Okay. So when you get done with that part of it, it's time for the X-Acto knife. You pull that thing out. Try not to, you know, any mishaps, because this is one of the most dangerous things, and they tell me in art school is the X-Acto knife. People have cut themselves so many times. And you start cutting them out. So it's like little templates. And then what happens is I put like flat colors in. I'll put like the orange for the hat. I'll start coloring in, and then I'll do another shape. I'll do like the face, and then I'll do the eyes. I'll do like a shirt, and I'll do every little sort of like object that's within that painting. And it's very, I mean, it's supposed to save me time in the long run, but it does make everything look very sharp, very nice and clean, and again, it works out quite well. So, you know, pretty soon you get to that point where everything is sort of just like these objects in there, and then at the very end, then this is when you start adding shading, you start adding your line work, you start adding other things into it for the final painting. And let's see if I got a final painting here.
John, just a really quick question.
Yes.
When you're making the cuts with the X-Acto knife, are they like hairline cuts, or are they fairly thick? How much paint are you allowing to go in the cutting area?
Like, no, I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. When I do the cut, I mean, I'm cutting out the hat shape.
The whole hat.
The whole hat shape is like you know, it's like a negative space. So when I go back in, I'm painting the whole thing, and then I remove the tape. I'm sorry, I should have said that. And then I remove the tape, and then you're left with the hat shape. You know, you're not necessarily, you still have to do the shading, you still have to do some line work in it, but you're left with this nice, crisp, clean, nice hat shape. And again, it's for all, and then eventually you start building up layers of all the shapes from the painting within the picture itself. And then again, it takes a while, but it's worth it.
So once you cut out, once you
Yeah.
get the line, you cut out the masking.
Masking
and then
out,
the
yeah.
tape
Masking.
Of that shape.
Of that shape.
Yeah.
So, and you got to pull out the right part. You don't want to pull out the outside part. I've done that a couple times, you know, because I'm so tired and I'm working, and I'm just like, yeah, I think that's it. And I realized I just spent 2 hours trying to like cut this perfect shape out, and realizing I just pulled out the wrong thing. So it's always good to make sure that you're pulling out the wrong thing. But it really is kind of a beautiful thing. So, and then from that point, you get to something like this. And then so this is the sketch transferred. And you can see where I see the nice sharp lines for the hat. I even masked out the shadow for the hat and the little you know, kind of ribbon on the top, the head, the shirt, the bow tie, the eyes. And then I start shading in and adding some design work, you know, just sort of building it up and kind of, you know, just making it, you know, kind of come to life in a sense, the way I like it. And again, it's also based on that sort of folk art look to it, worn out look about it, technique that they have. And so that's how we get to the painting. And I do that on all my paintings. So anyway, but is there any questions anybody has? Yeah. Yes.
Given that technique, then how long does a book typically take?
6 months. It takes 6 months for me, from start to finish. A minimum of 6 months. Oh, I forgot also to mention, just before anybody goes, because I know some people are going to head back inside real quick. Does anybody have a birthday right now in this month? Anybody have a birthday this month? Tuesday? Tuesday? Anybody closer than Tuesday? December 10th? Who else is closer than that? No? December 2nd, is that closer? Or for the 10th is closer? No? Yes?
10's going.
You got it. There you go. Okay. All right. Okay, any questions? Do we have any questions? I'm very... I grew up in Southern California. I am from here. Actually, my parents and my two brothers are here today, and a lot of my cousins and uncles are here today. But I live in New York. I've been living there for the past 13 years. So, but I've been very influenced by a lot of the Hispanic culture. You know, obviously my aunts and my dad and things like that. So to me, it feels like, you know, second nature. It's very close to my heart. So.
Do the X-Acto blades? Do you ever have problems where you cut too deep?
Well, the illustration board is thick. That's why I buy the extra thick one, and I think I labeled it on the thing how thick it has to be. You don't have to cut that thick into it, but also masonite is good for like if you're working in wood sometimes to get a nice smooth surface, and then you're able to cut into it. But canvas, of course, won't work because of that. Yeah. So, and also the sandpaper won't work either. So.